Okay.
Hello, everybody. This is Val and Kevin, and it's January 20, 2024, and we are presenting the Intuitive Senses Survival Sessions, and we're going to be talking about intuition and how it can help you and benefit you in your life. I'm going to start with 3 experiences I had in my life that brought me to this point where I use intuition daily, and it's been a real good benefit, better than the literal mind, actually, once you get used to the process that works for you. Not that we're negating the literal mind, but it's just a way to enhance your experience here on the planet. So my first experience with intuition, I would say, would be when I was practicing Tai Chi. This was many, many years ago, 25 years ago. And what I would do is to bring out my heart's desire of what did I want most of anything in the whole world. They call it your heart's desire. So I'd bring that up into my attention, and I would do the form, the Tai Chi form. I'd put it basically in the form. My intent was to put my heart's desire in the form, the Tai Chi form. And then what happened afterwards, then I would listen and I'd get a response. I'd actually get some feedback from whatever it was, something out there, life, my intuition, but I would actually get something of a response by using the intent of my heart's desire and the movement of the physical body. And then I started a relationship with this process. It was kind of an experiment, kind of interesting, and I just made it up myself, basically. So that was my first experience with intuition. I would say this is part of the intuition process that I developed for myself and that I use. So the second experience of learning my own process of intuition was the hike I took with my son in 2014 on the Pacific Crest Trail. And this was a 5-month journey, approximately 20 miles a day through, I think, 5 of the 6 eco zones of the world, deserts and alpine, sierras, forests, immersed in nature for 5 months. So what I learned there was that I didn't really need the mind in a way, because you're just eating, sleeping, and walking. And there's you don't have to pay your bills or take phone calls, get on the computer, except for if you want to know where you're going, GPS. But other than that, you're really out in nature and you're immersed in this environment which is more real than the systems that have been created in the world. So I learned to rely more on my instincts like an animal would, to maneuver myself through the trail. So the 5-month immersion was a process where I brought it back, actually, after the hike. I could use it because I was practicing this for 5 months. It's quite a long time. So that was my second experience with using, kind of dropping the mind, letting the mind go. Not dropping it, but letting it go. It has its function, but again, using more the intuitive, instinctual senses. And the third experience was basically about a month after the hike, where I met Dwayne the Great Rider. And here, everything kind of came together where he was able to articulate how this process works of intuition. What is it? Where is it? How can it help you? He refined the whole concept and idea of intuition and was able to articulate it very well to where I could use it in a way, again, to kind of as a lifestyle for my life, in the daily life, and not just like once in a while, but actually more or less let go of the free will and become more intuitive all the time. So where I'm being led by intuition, which is actually life showing you things. It's not some hocus pocus magical angel or your guide or your God in the sky being. It's the closest thing you have to who you really are, which we call the real awareness. So this intuitive body is really close to that. So if you engage it and practice it like a muscle, practice using it all the time, then it will benefit you to where you can be guided in a good way. Because the mind leads you astray because of all its passions. Paul Twitchell called it the passions of the mind: anger, lust, jealousy, a couple others. But all these mind passions where the mind wants its own way, it gains the knowledge, it has the information, but actually it's an entity that is in a way for itself. So this intuition part of ourselves is more or less for our benefit, because it's closer to who we really are. So those are the three ways I became more aware of how I can use intuition. And again, it was like heart's desire and movement, the hike where I let go of the mind. I was more instinctual, more with nature. And then meeting Dwayne the Great Writer, where he really put things together into a way, in many viewpoints. He brought in many viewpoints of how intuition works in our lives, and really refined it and was able to give us a handle on it so we could use it. And then we can share with others like we're doing right now. So I'll give it over to Kevin now, and he has his own story as well.
Yeah, as Val alluded to, that which we actually are is this real awareness. The nearest part of the creational self to the real awareness is the intuitive self, because in creation, our created self comprises of a selection of individual body forms. We have the astral or the emotional vehicle, and then we have the causal, and then we have the mental vehicle, and then the fifth level would be the ethereal. And so if we were to literally present the life levels, if we were to stack them one on top of each other, the lowest or densest life level would be referred to as the physical, and Dwayne has referenced this as the passing dream. And this real awareness that we actually are, this is actually a reality that is aside from everything creational. So as the secondary personal self becomes so, as the free will activation of the body vehicle mechanics, so as the secondary personal self comes to the fore, as the free will creating of ideas via the body vehicle mechanics is so then you have your two positions. You have the real awareness is this everything position, and the secondary personal self that is comes to the fore when the ideas are generated through the body vehicle mechanics. And the idea is then to alternate between the two positions, that a recognition of the two can be so. You can recognise the everything position of the real awareness in comparative relation to the pieces or parts, the ideas as created via the body-vehicle mechanics, and eventually through this back and forth, so eventual recognition of the is can be so, and which would then ultimately negate the necessity of the simulators, for the whole purpose of creation is to recognise the is. If that is accomplished, therefore no longer is it necessary to remain in the simulated creational realms. And so as I said, there will be but what tends to happen is that as the free will becomes available, as the individual free will creates the ideas through the body vehicle mechanics, it tends to be overindulged, and then the real awareness position is almost forfeited and forgotten, and then as lifetimes go by, the individual remains locked only in their personal self-creation, and then they will blunder and flounder through a creation, generating all the ideas and lifetimes or experiences that they will. But then will come a moment where the real awareness decides to now recognise the is, and then it is necessary to, as though, make contact with its creation, because in an analogy, it's the equivalent. That's probably why it's having internet trouble. As an analogy, it's the equivalent of an individual playing a computer game, where their computer game character takes on a life of their own, and the computer game operator, the real awareness, symbolically rather sits back and as its creation goes about its simulated experiences and lifetimes as though thinking it was real. But then comes the point where the computer operator, the real awareness, attempts to reconnect or establish a reconnection with its creation. And so as this real awareness decides this, so this will filter through to the personal created self in some manner or form. The references or the information will become available to it. For example, at this time now, Dwayne is operating on the physical level of the earth, and with his new presentation, as it's presenting the opportunity of the ears and the new song True Sound Connection to the true reality, and so as the real awareness decides this, so if the individual happens to be a human on the earth, the chances are that featuring in their experience will be some reference in association with Dwayne and the new presentation. They may come across a YouTube video in regards to some of the material that Dwayne is putting out, perhaps some real side experiences individuals have shared, or maybe they'll come across some of his many and myriad face group that he has made in relation to the references that pertain to the ears, because he's put out, I think, 4,000, 5,000 plus Facebook groups. He's put out endless websites. He has series upon series of books that are available, and so then will come the point where the personal self, once it has these references featuring in its experience, then will be the process where it has to align its intent with the real awareness. It's almost as though, even though it's it is a creation, the creation, as I said, has rather taken on a life of its own. And although it was essential that the secondary personal self was created for the comparison that it provides for the recognition of the ears, one of the drawbacks of that, I suppose, if you want to put it that way, is that now the personal self has to be brought up to speed and has to be aligning its intent now with the real intent, which is the real awareness, which is the recognition of the ears. And that can be rather an arduous and painstaking process, because as the personal disconnected from real awareness self goes through creation, not only is it creating all the experiences it will, but it is generally applying emotion to them, which rather enhances their potency. And Dwayne has identified this as being emotional attachment. So not only do we formulate the experience we have through the ideas we create, or the ideas as created by others that we agree with, but as we apply emotion to them, so these agreements then become very hard to release. because it's not just a process whereby we are recognising the is, but we also must disassociate attachment from the entirety of the consciousness of idea agreements we have constructed since we first entered the simulator, and some agreements will be harder to release than others. It just depends on the individual, but as Dwayne has often said, one single idea will keep you in creation, because any idea you agree and attach and are locked into, you are constantly the effect of it, and the only place where you can be the effect of an idea is in the creational simulators, where the ideas, the individual parts and pieces, can be isolated from the whole and experienced. So it's not like a punishment or anything of that nature. It's simply you are deciding to stay in creation by virtue of idea agreements that you cannot release attachment from. And so with me, when evidently my real awareness decided, the real awareness that I actually am, decided to recognise the is it is a part of, so what would filter into my experience, my personal self, would be a series of steps and stages that would eventually lead to the point where I find Dwayne and the new presentation. And with me, what I found was, and I was shown this on real side experiences, that the process for myself, and indeed very likely for most individuals, will span many, many lifetimes. And then they are slowly being taken through all the steps necessary to lead them to the point where the guides can make their presence known, or indeed if there happens to be a new presentation and an intermediary is available which has the recognition of the is who can present it, such as Dwayne Hepner as things currently stand, then so this is how the individual can have the relevant references supplied by which they can go about their process, because absent of the references, obviously it's far harder for the process to be undertaken. Because in order to set an intent for something, for the personal self has to set the intent with the is, you have to have the references for that which you are setting the intent for. If you want to go, for example, if you want to visit a jungle, you have to know that the jungle is there in the first place in order to set an intent for it, in order for that to be so. And so absent of the references, yes, the real awareness may intend to recognise the is, but it's the personal self that requires the literal references by which it can align its intent with the real awareness, so this process can be established. And with me, I tended to find that in regards to intuition, I would always have intuitive nudges of a kind, in where, as I went through my series of steps, I was effectively going through all manner of spiritual, quote-unquote, orientated idea practices, and every time I would undertake a new spiritual course or practice, I would always feel at that moment that that was like the ultimate stage or step that I was trying to find. But then as moments went by, always I would have a nudge, there was something more, there was something I was missing, and so I would go seeking again, and then I would find something else, and then the same process would repeat itself. I would feel intuitively this is where I am to be at that moment, and I would form the assumption that this is the ultimate step I was seeking for, but then once again would be the intuitive nudge, there was something more, and I would move on again, and this would proceed and eventually would lead me to the new presentation. But unlike the previous ideas and spiritual and various other pursuits and practices I was involved in, which were rather numerous, unlike those where I felt they were the ultimate, and then there was the intuitive realisation that they weren't, what would be different with the new presentation and Dwayne was that indeed this is the ultimate and final step. Basically the truck stops here, because what Dwayne is presenting is in actuality the means by which extrication from the simulated creational realms is so, and a process by where recognition of the is can be accomplished, and the releasing of all the agreements and ideas and attachments of the consciousness, that we are no longer limited to the creational realms, and so effectively what other stage can there be other than that? And so once extrication from the simulators is so, then is a situation where one can progressively continue into the endlessness of the isness, as awareness and the isness is endless, and so there can be no point when you have completed that process. It's an endlessness, and indeed the guides represent a certain position of awareness, and beyond them are beings referred to as the true silent ones, which are even further into the recognition of the is they are a part of, and who knows what expressions of form lie beyond those. And so, as I said, with me, there would always be this nudge, or this indefinable urge that what I was doing wasn't the ultimate, and so I would always move on until, as I said, eventually I would find Dwayne and the new presentation. I actually stumbled upon a YouTube video put out by the Russian individual called Anton, and then I would make contact with Dwayne through his website, and then he would bring me onto a Skype, and I would have a series of Skypes with him when I was speaking directly to him, which again was quite refreshing in and of itself, because a lot of times you find with these spiritual paths and so on and so forth, you don't tend to have much interaction with the individual who is orchestrating or is in charge, or the leader of the spiritual thing or whatever. They tend to be rather disassociated from the general people or those involved. But with Dwayne, he was very hands-on, he was very direct, and he was, as I said, he was very keen to have live Skypes with me. And then from there I came on to the some of the Skypes, started listening to some of the recordings, and it went from there. And as I said, I came across the new presentation in November 2017, and so here I am, 6 years later, I think, something like that. And although I recognise I still have a very long way to go, my real side experiences do reveal I still have a lot of attachments and agreements to face and sever. Nevertheless, I am ongoing and proceeding with it, and so I will stop there.
Great, Kevin. Thank you. Kevin has a YouTube channel, it's New Kevin Smith, N-U Kevin Smith. Go there for lots of information if you want to follow up on this. Also, Dwayne, the great writer, he has many Facebook groups, as mentioned, or he has books too to read. We have a great online presence, and we're available to talk to. You can talk to me on Facebook here, Messenger me anytime. And I think that's it for the night. But appreciate you listening. And again, Kevin just basically went over the mechanics of how life works. And that's not something you get in the spiritual paths. It's all about belief, faith, hope there, but there's actually a mechanism how life works and a process. And then once you hook into that, you're okay. And we want everybody to be okay, which is another thing that you don't hear a lot of. You hear a lot about people wanting heaven, bliss, thrills, but being okay is highly underrated because it's a long journey for all of us. So being okay is okay. And we'll see you next time.
Shall we finish with the new song?
Yes.
To wrap things up.
Good.
So the new song is the connection to the real you, your real awareness, that is part of the is this true reality. And so as you sing the new you song, you'll connect in with the real awareness, the real you, that which you actually are, and it will open up the real side, or what most people refer to as dreams, and which is your intuitive window, where you will start to have revealed to you everything you need to know, and which the guides will provide you to facilitate your journey of awareness and is recognition. And so, new you.
What has become known as dreams is actually your intuitive senses that provide new openings to far more than what can be experienced on Earth. Over the course of time, which has been many lifetimes, the world controllers have constantly changed history according to what they have decided for them. And this is why most unaware people are very confused as to why they are here now. The present-day education systems created by them are the result of tricking unaware people into a gradual transformation from the all-natural intuitive senses into convinced academic and literalized specimens, where they become the subjects to continuously and for more ongoing lifetimes work the contrived business world for capitalized controllers. Do the birds do this and also destroy what is all natural for themselves? You can contact Val Vitols at 408-990-6627 or email at valvitols4@yahoo.com. Thank you.